My name is Sara Angel. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I am teaching at Middletown High in Middletown, Delaware, and I'm teaching two sections of psychology for high school seniors and one section of U.S. history for high school freshmen. When I was in high school, I hated social studies, which is very surprising to me now, and looking back over the years, I'm like, why? History is so awesome, but history is my least favorite subject. And somehow through psychology education, I stumbled into history, and I ended up falling in love with it. So I really want to take what I love and how I learned to love history, how I learned to stop wearing the Martha bomb, that whole thing. I wanted to learn, or to take that, how I learned to love history, and give that to my students, or how I learned to love psychology and give that to my students. So I think that one of the best things about being a social studies teacher is that there is such a broad spectrum of things you could possibly be teaching. You can never be bored with all that range. You have U.S. history, which is broad in of itself. World history, I mean, come on. You have Civ, you have poli-sci, geography, you have econ, you have psychology, sociology, like just such a range that you're never going to be bored with that, and they're so adaptable to students' lives that you can really make them relatable, a lot more so than I think other disciplines can allow for. So I think that one of the best things about being a student teacher is really you can make things interesting in your own way, and you'll go across and see a lot of different social studies teachers, and every single person does it differently. There is no Pythagorean theorem for teaching World War I. There is no certain way. You do it on your own. You always get to be creative, and you always get to try new things. So I love that about it. But I always encourage my students to look into behavioral sciences as well as history and that kind of thing, because it's so overlooked these days. So. Well, I had this perception of psych ed being, I was going to totally be in psych, guaranteed going to be teaching psychology, was going to graduate with other psych people, and that was it, and I was never going to have to leave my little psych bubble. And that, perception was perpetuated by a lot of the advisement I was receiving in psychology, and that wasn't anything, intentional. It was just that's what they know when they do that advisement, so they're going to only advise you on psych-related items. There was no mention of, hey, you have this whole other criteria to go along with student teaching that you should be preparing for. So one of the things I think would have helped me transition into student teaching a lot more smoothly was if I had actually reached out for advisement in the history department a lot sooner. Because I didn't really recognize that, hey, we're all going to be in this together by the end. Like, we all are kind of grouped in with social studies. That wasn't made clear until, basically I was in your class. So that was a huge, wow, okay, wake-up call. But it was something that I wish was made more clear to a lot of the freshmen, especially the requirements that you should be doing along the way, like the learning portfolio, like there are a lot of steps that I think are, I know are manageable along the way as long as you know about them. But so much of the smaller disciplines like sociology education and psychology education, they kind of get lost in the mix somewhere. So you really have to stand up for yourself and reach out for those resources, because they're definitely there. You just have to know to find them. But it is a great program once you know who to ask help for. I think just how quickly you can show growth and the freedom to be able to try out new things and have them completely fail and just completely change your attitude about failure. I mean, really, before I became a student teacher, I was afraid of failure, and now you have to get used to that idea, because that's what teachers do. They adapt. So you have to learn to pick yourself up, change your lesson, change your behavior, plan or whatever it might be, move forward. So I think learning how to deal with when things go wrong, and do that with grace and dignity in front of your class, and make it seem like, I got this, it's okay, and then just move on. I think that's a real skill that I've picked up while I've been in my student teaching. That's definitely something I did not know I was going to learn, but it was definitely one of the most valuable.